Agapanthus are one of my all-time favourite mid to late summer flowering plants for the garden, and these ones that we've got here in the garden at Blakeney are just at their very best this week. We're just coming into the first week of August, and this very delicate white variety, pure white but just with a speckling of pinky mauve, this one just on the outer aspect of the distant petals. It's really pretty. They're held really well on around 3 foot tall spikes. This one's a little droughted at the moment, which I think is why it's so droopy and soft. It's growing in a pot, and we've just had a 2-week let in the garden, so it hasn't been watered, I doubt, for 2 weeks. We're going to give this a water and a feed today to keep it going. Let's have a look at some others that we've got here in the garden. This is another one we've got growing in a pot here over at Blakeney. Beautiful, deep, almost cobalt blue this. Big flower heads, held again, if we just draw back, around 3 foot up. This is pot grown again. Slightly larger leaf and a larger base if we just work our way in there and just look at the lovely bud formation that you get with this plant. Not as free flowering as the white variety with the smaller flowers, but worth growing. As those open up, they'll form spectacular bulbs of blue. This smaller flowered version has actually been planted out into the gravel and is absolutely loving it here. To flourish like this, they really do need very little in the way of competition around the base where the leaves are growing, and the sunnier position you can give them in the UK, the better. They really do like to get baked and full sun, and with a little bit of feed and water, they'll do this every year throughout August. You'll see this one is far sunnier position. It's already setting some seed on these flower heads. The flowers fading away, but that will continue to flower and give us a blast of colour from a distance for around a further 2 weeks before it fades. This is yet another variety of the Agapanthus we've got here, and if we just come in, you can see the variety that you can get with the different variations. Almost got a striation, well, it has, right the way down the middle of each petal, fading away to white on the sides with this dark blue centre line. Absolutely gorgeous. This one's growing actually in full shade under this fig tree, so in late summer here it really is in dappled shade for most of the day. As a consequence, we've got quite a proliferation of leaf growth at the base of here. I think what we'll probably do this year is dig this up and move it into a more sunnier spot, because it really has been outgrown by this quite massive fig tree that we've got here on the Norfolk coast. Just by its side we've also got this much smaller flowered variety, and the leaf on this is fine, longer, very much different form, obviously the same genus of plants. This one's only growing to around 2–2.5 feet. Again, it's getting a bit more light here, but still getting some dappled shade from the fig tree. So again, this would benefit from going into a sunnier position, but I think we'll leave it here for another year or so because it's still doing well. What we'll probably do is cut back the fig tree to give it a bit more light earlier in the season. One of my favourite plantings of Agapanthus is here on the back of the cottage. This is a west-facing wall, and you can see that although these plants are growing really nicely and flowering well, all the flower is coming away from the wall towards the light. Now, these plants were planted here about 2 to 3 years ago, and they were initially planted as 5 or 6 separate plants into this quite compacted and dry gravel at the base of this very warm wall. This really does get baked in the summer afternoon sun here, but the planting I just love, and the leaf growth on this is part of the joy in watching these, as well as the buds as they come up through the leaf. But it just forms a beautiful architectural bank of greenery against what would otherwise be a quite uninteresting junction between the gravel and the brick wall. Above it we've got the wisteria, which flowers with really long bracts all the way down into this planting earlier in the season. And this blue variety of Agapanthus really is absolutely stunning, particularly in low levels of light. It just pops. And this will flower here in England for around about 2 to 3 weeks, peaking now about the first week in August, going through these flowers will gradually fade away and form seed pods. We will deadhead these because we don't want it to seed out into this gravel. We want to keep it retained against this brick wall so it gives us this feature year after year. And it's a reliable planting which gives you both architectural foliage and this beautiful splash of blue just at the time when you're sitting out and going to enjoy it when you're having a barbecue. We've just got a lovely bit of sun on this back wall now on the west face of the cottage where we showed you the Agapanthus earlier, and I just wanted to come out and do a short follow-on section just to show you why this planting works so well in this position. Look at the beautiful deep blue in the shade that still pops, and then the ones that are just catching the sunlight in the evening light. And then in the foreground this large leafed hosta which we've got growing in a pot, just as a contrast to the upright foliage on the Agapanthus. Works so well as a companion planting. I just love this. Something about the aesthetics of those tall stems leaning forward towards the light, and the colours are just fantastic. So a planting for you to hopefully copy and reproduce somewhere in your own gardens.